warm, third knife, and I'll be doing that once all the way round, feeling to the bone. First, the cut has to cut. We're then going to put a thing in called a retractor, which is really a slip bandage that goes around the bones, and then the quartermaster pulls all that flesh up towards the patient, which will expose the bone, and then with a saw, I will cut through it. I'll cut through the bone, you'll see me do that, and then there's a little instrument here called a tenaculum, which is like a tiny little button hook with a little ligature, bless you, with a little ligature that goes around it, and then we tie off the artery. So we have to slacken off that tourniquet so I can see it easily, so I can find the artery again. So that's called a tenaculum. Now, one thing that is interesting, the French discussed this, is that tobacco, nicotine, is a muscle relaxant. It relaxes all those muscles. So it means you could do some pretty serious operations with nicotine as a relaxant. Unfortunately, it has to be administered by a cigar pushed into the rectum. Now, because this is a Sabbath, we're not going to do that. I can imagine that's one of the things that you could do. The other thing is this poor lad who can't speak English doesn't know what is going to happen to him. So he wants a few soothing words. I mean, I can't speak French, I can't speak English, but I need to calm the situation down and try and explain to this fellow that we've got to do what we've got to do, and we're doing it for the best. The other thing is alcohol. Alcohol calms the nerves. So I'm going to explain to this chap, calm the situation down before I start the operation. The operation is going to be grisly. Last time we did this, a young fellow fainted and hit his head on the ground, and we had to get the ambulance and everything. So please remember, you youngsters, this is not real. It's not a country. Really going to take this leg. I think we need to explain to this chap. You can just sit him up a bit. Soothing words. I'm going to cut your leg off now. Now, can you see? I've steadied my nerves, and now I'm ready for the operation. Now, what's that called? Tourniquet. Invented by Monsieur Petit, a Frenchman. Very, very clever, that. Before that, they just put a strap round or use their thumb pressure, but that squeezes that artery against the bone to stop the bleeding when I do that cut. So, gentlemen, if you please, we're ready now. Might be a good idea to time this operation, actually. He's even injured in French. You hear that? It's encouraging, isn't it? That, he knows what's going on. Okay. This is going to hurt. What is French for this is going to hurt? It's going to hurt now.
Courage, mon brave, courage!
Now tighten it up. As tight as you can.
Okay.
Passed out, sir.
You're going to pull up that flesh now towards you into retraction. Now, can you pass me the sword, please? It's in the pocket. Well done. Yeah. Nice and sharp. Yeah. Now we're going to cut through the bone. Oh! Oh! Oh, another thing I didn't say is when you cut through the bone, you've got to make sure you don't leave any little spurs of bone left over, because when the flesh grows back, they'll be irritated by that spur of bone for the rest of his life. So it's rather like in woodwork classes, you know, you've got to make a nice clean cut all the way through. Another thing, the saw sometimes gets a little bit blunt. So it takes a little bit longer. Anyway, what I'm going to do now, this little thing's called a tenaculum. I'm going to now take up some arteries and ligate them, or just tie them off with a ligature. Those ligatures will be left hanging days afterwards, and we can keep tugging them away. So, pull them off. Just slacken that tail. That's it. It's passed out completely, sir. Pinch his face. Is he conscious? Now this bandage here is called a charpy. It comes from the Indian Army. It's a kind of pad. No, I want cross bandage there. Is somebody timing this? Right. You'll be okay there. Now, within 10 days, this fellow will be up on his feet and have a wooden leg. And he can follow his regiment. Unfortunately, this chap won't be following his regiment. He'll be going to a French prisoner of war camp, possibly on Dartmoor. And he'll spend the rest of his life making little model boats out of old stones and things, trying to eke out a living. But at least he'll survive. Probably a 50% rate.
Reminds you of the main one was up near Peterborough, wasn't it? Norman Cross. See.
Probably. Take that. This will hurt. Now the blood's going to go down to the stump. And what we're looking for is a nice pink stump that's going to actually be full of blood. If it stays and goes white and then black, you know that we've crushed up that artery just a little bit too much. Now, how long did that take? About 5 minutes. When you think about it, there would be hundreds of soldiers left out on the battlefield, all queuing up, waiting to be treated. At Waterloo, some of them were left on the field for 5 or 6 days before they found them in cornfields. And by then, of course, their wounds were septic and they died of septicemia. But this young chap here bore it very well. If we can just sit him up now. There we are. Now, as a young French boy, he's had his leg taken off with a cannonball. If you look at old engravings by Hogarth and Gilray, you'll see men with wooden legs, and their leg is stuck at a right angle. When I was your age, I used to think that they were malingerers. I thought they were proper sort of beggars. But the thing is, when your knee is smashed, in those days they didn't have ways of fixing it. You had a choice of your leg either being stuck out forever straight, or stuck out like that at right angles forever. And of course, all the soldiers chose that because they'd spend the rest of their lives sitting in a pub, boring people about the Battle of Waterloo. They didn't want to be sitting in the pub with their legs sticking out like that. So they were injured, but that they would have a little wooden peg leg. Now, as a little sobering thought, while we've been watching this, there's young men and women out in Afghanistan going on patrol with tourniquets already fitted to their upper legs made of Velcro. Now that's a particular sort of bravery. So next time you see one of those collecting boxes for help for heroes, please give generously. Now before I say cheerio, I don't want a round of applause because I want your applause reserved for the Punch and Judy show. Because in a minute there's going to be a Punch and Judy show with a real difference. I've seen it 4 times already. It's brilliant. You're going to see the best performance because it's the final performance. It's been getting better and better each time. So save your applause for Punch and Judy, which is absolutely brilliant, which is going to be over there at, I think, 3:30. So make sure you go and see that. Thanks a lot. Thank you.